Surgeon and past president of the State Medical Association, Dr. A.C. Jackson, was shot by a white teenager as he held his hands above his head. He was not killed instantly. His body was thrown into a truck and he was dumped at the convention center, where after hours of suffering without medical attention, he bled to death.
Cars began to drive slowly along our street. Cars driven by the sort of men who wear their caps backward, visors down their necks, probably not to interfere with their rifle gaze. And the niggers in these houses, they would shout. The gaping children were called in hastily from the curbs. Didn't seem a very educational sight, not a very safe one. After the first car or so, people sent their servants down in the cellar or up in the attic and waited.
Then the horde of ruffians went down Detroit, looting those beautiful homes of everything valuable and burning them. The machine guns just shattered the walls of the homes. The fire department came out and protected the white homes on the west side of the street. Men and women with torches and women with shopping bags continued their looting and burning of Negro homes.
My mother saw some white people coming toward our house, and she put us under the bed when she saw them coming. My older sister got under first, and then it was my younger sister, and then my brother, and then they pulled me under the bed. Now, by this time, the people were coming in. They had torches in their hands. We could see their feet from under the bed. And one stepped on my finger. And as I went to scream, my sister put her hand over my mouth. I don't know today as to what would have happened had they heard us under the bed. But they came in and they set the curtains on fire and set our house on fire, and then went out the door, and my mother got us from under the bed. I will always remember that on this day I live.
There was the son of a cook in our street. Around 9 o'clock, the man he worked for came and asked for Hattie. He was in a car with some other men. It seemed that the boy thought he ought to get to his job. Before he knew it, he'd been caught in the fighting around the railroad tracks and crawled under a freight car to hide. Someone went in after him and shot him with a pistol. Now that things were quieting down a little, he was lying in the town hall where the militia were assembling the blacks. But his employer was afraid he wouldn't live many more hours. If Hattie wanted to see the boy, he said, he would take her down and look out for her. But she was afraid to go. He couldn't blame her, really. Some of the house Negroes who had allowed themselves to be put in those wandering cars and escorted to the safety of the town hall had been shot at as they drove through the streets. It wasn't the ride an old woman wanted to undertake, even to see her boy alive. The boy's boss understood. He went back himself and got a doctor and stayed with the boy till he died.
The burning of that flesh, you could smell. It was horrible. And then those crosses burning up on the Reservoir Hill, which at that time there's no homes up there.
About 7 o'clock, the whites or home guards came for the men. Then they took the women and children, promising them safety. After they had the homes vacated, one bunch of whites would come in and loot. Even women with shopping bags would come in, open drawers, take every kind of finery from clothing to silverware and jewelry. Men were carrying out the furniture, cursing as they did so, saying, "These damn Negroes have better things than a lot of us white people." I stayed until my home was caught on fire. Then I ran to the hillside where there were throngs of white people, women, men and children, even babies, watching and taking snapshots of the proceedings of the mob. Some remarked that the city ought to be sued for selling them damn niggas' property so close to the city. One woman noticed the First Baptist Church, which is a beautiful structure located near a white residential district. And she said, "Yonder is a nigger church. Why ain't they burning it?" The reply was, "It's in a white district."
I saw the bombs dropping and the church explode. The 6 airplanes that I saw flying over Standpipe Hill and dropping the bombs on Mount Zion Baptist Church.
And burned that church, and it just completed 40 days, and it was burned. The white church on 4th Street was a frame church. Our church was better than the white people's church.
This church was only 40 days old. It was truly a symbol of black prosperity, and it was burnt to the ground, allegedly because ammunition was being stored in the basement or some such nonsense.
People were seen to flee from their burning homes, some with babes in their arms and leading crying, excited children by the hand, others old and feeble, all fleeing to safety. Yet seemingly, I could not leave. I walked as one in a horrible dream. By this time, my little girl was up and dressed, but I made her lie down on the dufo in order that the bullets must penetrate it before reaching her. By this time, a machine gun had been installed in the granary and was raining down bullets on our section. Mary Parrish.
The most horrible scenes of this occurrence was to see women dragging their children while running to safety, and the dirty white rascals firing at them as they ran. Some of them were pursued for more than 12 or 15 miles, and some never returned. Negro hospitals with numbers of sick were burned, and many people perished in the flames, not being able to get to a place of safety. Women were chased from their homes, naked, with clothes in their hands, and volleys of shots fired at them as they were fleeing. Some with babies in their arms. A.H.
As I neared Standpipe Hill, I could see homes on Eastern and Detroit burning, and also discovered that the enemy had located on the hill and that our district was entirely surrounded. We thought that we were leaving the firing behind, but found that our danger was increasing, for a machine gun was located on the hillside.
They came over and they had machine guns up there, and he was manning the machine gun, and he and his companions, they were shooting down on the people.
They had machine guns up there, shooting at us. My husband and I, when we came out, they were shooting at us. We didn't get any shots. They killed one of our fine doctors.
I can never forget a family who started out and had the misfortune to lose one wheel off their wagon and therefore had to get out and walk. In that numbers was a mother and a father with a 6-month-old infant. Such a fine and healthy baby. The father would run along and carry it a while, when the mother would take it until she was tired out. When they both were just about exhausted, the father cried out, "Will someone help us?"
Mrs. Rosa Davis Skinner, who told about the night of the riot, when it broke out on Greenwood, she was asleep. Her husband awakened her and said, "Wife, come on, there's a riot on." And they left fleeing, she in her gown and house shoes, and joined with a neighbor next door who had had a stillborn baby early in the day. They were going to bury the baby the next day, put it in a little shoebox, and Mrs. Skinner said that while they were running, mobsters shooting at them, bullets zinging at them, people shoving and bumping into each other, this lady dropped that little shoebox, and she got down on her hands and knees to try to find it. And she couldn't, and her husband just dragged her away, said, "You're going to get killed. We've got to go." And he dragged her away, and they never found that little baby. This lady wept when she told me that. She was 98 years old, And that had been 75 years earlier, and she wept and said, I often wonder what happened to that poor little baby. We both wept.
We came out after several shots were fired into the house by the mob. 2 or 3 whites thrust guns in each man's face.